For a long time, I thought I had the kind of life people dream about. A quiet suburban neighborhood just outside Portland, Oregon. A husband who worked long hours but always managed to come home in time for dinner. 2 little boys who filled our home with giggles, mud-stained sneakers, and bedtime stories. And in those early years, even my mother-in-law gave me the illusion of approval, her polite smiles stretched over tight lips, as though kindness was something she had to rehearse. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 32, a full-time mom raising 2 boys under 6, and married to Daniel, a mechanical engineer with an unshakable belief that duct tape can fix everything, including, somehow, his mother. We live in a modest 2-story house, cheerful in its imperfections, with a swing set in the yard and crayon smudges decorating the refrigerator. From the outside, I suppose it looks like we have it all. And honestly, I used to believe that, too. Until Margaret started helping. Margaret, Daniel's mother, presents herself to the world as polished, gracious, a woman of poise and patience who never raises her voice. Always in pearls, always with a calm smile. To friends and neighbors, she's the model mother. And in the beginning, I tried to see her that way. I wanted to believe it. But I've learned over time that what people do when no one else is looking reveals who they truly are. And Margaret has a gift for weaponizing kindness I'll never forget. The first meal she served me in their family home in Salem. Daniel was given a ribeye steak, seared and glistening with rosemary butter. His father, Edward, had grilled salmon with lemon. My plate, a sad pile of steamed vegetables floating in a thin, cloudy broth that smelled faintly like dishwater. "You're watching your figure, right?" Margaret said sweetly, tilting her head as though she were doing me a favor. I hadn't said a word about my weight, ever. But I smiled and thanked her because what else could I do? That moment set the tone for every visit after. The slights were small but deliberate. When she made hot cocoa for the boys, somehow mine would be forgotten. At Christmas, when she handed out chocolates, my piece would come in a dusty off-brand wrapper, while everyone else got the expensive ones. She'd tilt her head and say things like, "It must be hard not working, but at least your children always have someone at home." Her smile never faltered, but her words carried tiny barbs. Daniel never noticed. Or maybe he just refused to. "She means well," he'd tell me every time. "That's just her way of showing love." Love, right. Like the time she gifted me a cookbook titled Simple Meals for the Culinary Challenged. Or the time she posted a family photo from our son's birthday party, her 3 favorite people, Daniel, Edward, and the birthday boy, cropping me out completely. Still, I told myself I could endure it. After all, she didn't live with us. And Daniel, though blind to the nuances, was on my side door, so I thought. Then came the chocolate. It was summertime. We had taken the boys to Salem for a long weekend at their house. One afternoon, while Daniel ran errands with Edward and the boys napped upstairs, Margaret appeared at the patio door with a porcelain plate in hand. "I brought you something sweet," she said warmly. "Belgian truffles, a treat for a tired mama." The chocolates looked off. Their surfaces were dull, one slightly crushed at the corner. Still, I didn't want to seem ungrateful. I thanked her, picked one up, and popped it into my mouth. It crunched. Chocolates aren't supposed to crunch. The taste was bitter, chalky, with a grainy texture that clung to my tongue. "Yours is special," Margaret said, watching me too intently. "I saved that one just for you." Her tone twisted my stomach. I forced a polite smile, set the rest aside, and mumbled, I'll save the others for later. She didn't protest. An hour later, the cramps hit. Sharp, stabbing pains gripped my stomach, and I barely made it to the downstairs bathroom before collapsing against the cold tile. Shaking and nauseous, Daniel found me half an hour later, pale, clammy, barely able to lift my head. "You okay?" he asked, alarmed. "Something I ate," I managed weakly. He helped me upstairs, made me tea, tucked the boys in. I didn't mention the chocolate. Not yet. The following morning, while taking out the trash, I spotted something odd in the kitchen, behind a crumpled candy wrapper with white foil and faded lettering. I fished it out with the tip of a spoon and flattened it on the counter. Best by December 2012, I froze. My throat went dry. It was 22/2. She hadn't just given me expired chocolate. She had given me chocolate that was 10 years old. I slipped the wrapper into my jeans pocket. I didn't know what I'd do with it, but throwing it away felt wrong, like tossing evidence. That night, once the kids were asleep, I showed Daniel. He squinted at the wrapper. She probably didn't realize. It's not like she checks the dates on everything. "Daniel," I said carefully, "this wasn't just expired. It was ancient." It crunched. "She's been cleaning out the pantry. Maybe it got mixed in." "She told me it was just for me," I pressed. He shifted uncomfortably. "Are you saying she did it on purpose?" I stared at him. "Do you think she didn't?" He rubbed his temples. "Even if she did, what are you going to do? Accuse her, she deny it, and then we'll have drama for months." Anger burned in my chest. "She's been doing things like this for years, Daniel. This wasn't an accident." He sighed. "Emma, I love you, but I think you're reading too much into this." I bit back my words. There was no point arguing further. The next morning, I called my younger brother, Ryan, who lived in Sacramento and worked in IT retail. Unlike Daniel, he always listened. But even he had no idea what I was about to tell him. Because for the first time, I shared everything: the chocolates, the years of subtle cruelty. The way Margaret's kindness always carried poison beneath the sugar. And Ryan's response would change everything. When I finally told my brother Ryan everything, there was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him processing it all: the chocolates, the stomach cramps, the wrapper that proved it hadn't just been an accident. Then his voice came steady, practical, the way it always did when he slipped into problem-solving mode. "You need to set up cameras." I blinked. "What?" "Hidden ones. Small, cheap, easy to use. You're going back to her house, right?" I sighed. "She's invited us to a weekend at Cannon Beach in 2 weeks. She rented a cottage for everyone." "Perfect," Ryan said, without hesitation. "Record everything. If she really is doing what you think she's doing, you need proof. Especially since Daniel's still not seeing it." I hated that he was right. But he was. 3 days later, a small box arrived at our doorstep with Ryan's handwriting scrawled across the top. Inside were 5 tiny button-sized cameras, a portable Wi-Fi router, and a short note: "Don't wait for another chocolate. Record everything." I stared at the devices sitting in my palm. It felt wrong and right all at once, like crossing a line, but also like the only way forward. I tucked them into my overnight bag. That evening, Daniel came home, cheerful as always after a call with his mother. "Mom says the Cannon Beach place has 2 guest rooms and a big deck overlooking the water. She even booked a private chef for Saturday night." Of course she did. I forced a thin smile. Sounds nice. But in my head, I wasn't packing swimsuits anymore. I was packing evidence. Cannon Beach in April was breathtaking. all mist and pine, and waves crashing against dark rocks. The cottage Margaret had rented was tucked at the edge of the woods, a narrow gravel path leading up to a porch that wrapped around the house. It was charming in a way, almost picturesque, as though she'd staged even the location itself. Margaret greeted us at the door, dressed in a quilted vest and crisp turtleneck, her smile perfectly measured. "It's so good to see you all," she cooed, hugging the boys tightly before resting her hand on my shoulder. "Emma, you look rested." I smiled politely. "Thanks. So do you." Edward stood behind her, thermos in hand, nodding in quiet acknowledgement. Daniel busied himself carrying bags inside, already helping the boys claim their room. Margaret insisted on giving me a tour. Though the place was small, barely 1,200 square feet. "You and Daniel will stay here," she said, gesturing to a room with twin bunk beds. "The boys can share the bunks. Edward and I will take the master. The kitchen is shared, very communal, just like family." Her words dripped with sweetness, but there was an undertone I couldn't miss. That first evening was uneventful. Dinner was roasted chicken, salad, and fresh bread. Margaret served everyone's plate, everyone except mine, which she handed to me last, an extra beat too late. No chicken skin, no roasted potatoes, mostly limp steamed kale. I stayed silent, but later that night, when the house finally grew quiet, I pulled out Ryan's cameras. My hands didn't even shake anymore. I had memorized the instructions. Camera 1, tucked in the kitchen corner, facing the prep counter. Camera 2, hidden above the refrigerator, angled at the sink and trash. Camera 3, disguised as a coat hook in the hallway near Margaret's room. Camera 4, slipped inside a vase at the dining table. Camera 5, hidden in our own bedroom, just in case. Everything streamed straight to my laptop, locked in the closet with a password only I knew. By 2 a.m., the house was still again, and I finally allowed myself to breathe. The next morning, Margaret was already in the kitchen, humming softly. "Good morning," she chirped as I walked in. "I let you sleep in. The boys are outside with Daniel, hunting for seashells." She poured me tea without asking, sliding the cup toward me. "I was thinking we could have a little lunch together, just the two of us." "That's thoughtful," I said, feigning a sip, with a flourish. She opened a sleek paper box. Inside was a colorful bento arrangement, neatly arranged rice, vegetables, and slices of fish. "I picked this up from a boutique deli in town," she said with a smile. "Imported ingredients, very exclusive. You deserve something special." She placed it carefully in the fridge, the label written in perfect script. "Emma." I nodded, thanked her, and left the kitchen, but my skin prickled. I already knew. That afternoon, while the boys napped and Daniel went walking with his father, I slipped into our room and opened my laptop. My heart pounded as I queued up the morning footage at 10:46 a.m. There she was, Margaret, alone in the kitchen, pulling gloves from her handbag. She opened a small Tupperware container, and my stomach lurched as something inside twitched. I zoomed in. A cockroach. She calmly reached in with tweezers, lifted the insect, and nestled it into the bed of rice like a jeweler setting a stone. She sprinkled sesame seeds over the top, smoothed the surface, then smiled satisfied with her work. I slammed the laptop shut, bile rising in my throat. I had expected expired food, maybe an allergy trigger, a stray hair, but this was deliberate, calculated, cold. She wanted me to eat it. She wanted to humiliate me, maybe even make me sick enough to leave. That evening, Margaret announced dinner plans with her usual flair. "Tomorrow night will be special," she said proudly. "I've arranged gourmet bento boxes from the same deli. One for each of us." She turned toward me, her eyes glinting. "Yours will be custom." "Of course it will," I murmured, forcing calm. Daniel barely looked up, distracted with helping our youngest. "Mom says they cost nearly $700 for all of us. She's really going all out." Edward didn't comment, but his silence felt heavy. Later, in the bathroom as I brushed my hair, Daniel came in. "You okay?" he asked softly. I met his eyes in the mirror. "Do you believe me now?" He frowned. "About what?" Wordlessly, I opened the medicine cabinet, pulled out the flash drive I had saved the footage on, and held it out to him. "Watch this," I said. "Before dinner tomorrow." But he didn't. He muttered something about being tired, about me overthinking again, about how his mother had been trying so hard lately. I wanted to scream, but instead, I tucked the flash drive away again. Tomorrow, she would try. And tomorrow, I would be ready. The next morning carried a strange heaviness. Sunlight filtered through the kitchen blinds, but it didn't warm me the way it used to. Daniel sat across from me, sipping coffee, his eyes filled with a quiet concern. He hadn't pressed me for details last night. Maybe he was afraid of what he'd hear. Maybe I was afraid to say it aloud. "Daniel," I began softly, my hand tightening around the mug. "I need you to trust me today." His brow furrowed. "Emma, I always trust you." I wanted to believe that, but Margaret's shadow loomed over everything. I swallowed hard. "Then promise me no matter what happens at dinner tonight, you'll let me show you first. Don't defend her until you've seen." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, I promise." Dinner was Margaret's territory. She insisted on setting the table herself, fussing over every fork placement, every folded napkin. The air felt thick with anticipation. Ryan sat quietly at the end, giving me the smallest nod of reassurance. The flash drive, tucked deep in my pocket, was my silent shield. Margaret emerged from the kitchen carrying a steaming platter. Roast chicken, glazed carrots, mashed potatoes, her signature spread. She set it down with a smile so polished it almost sparkled. To anyone else, she looked like the perfect hostess. To me, she looked like a predator ready to pounce. "Eat, everyone," she said sweetly. "I made it just the way Daniel likes it." I reached for the serving spoon, my hands steady though my heart thundered. I placed food on the children's plates, careful to leave Daniel's untouched. He shot me a puzzled look, but I ignored it. I had to time this perfectly. "Margaret," I said evenly, "before anyone eats, I'd like to share something." Her smile faltered, just slightly. "Emma, can't this wait? The food will get cold." "No," I said, my voice stronger now. "This can't wait." I pulled out the flash drive and slid it into Ryan's laptop, already set up on the sideboard. The screen lit up. A still image appeared first. Margaret in the kitchen, her back turned slightly to the camera. With a click, the video rolled. Gasps filled the room. On the screen, Margaret methodically opened a spice jar and sprinkled something into a pot simmering on the stove. Not seasoning, not salt. Rat poison. The label flashed clear in the hidden camera's view. Daniel's chair scraped against the floor. "Mom." Margaret's face drained of color. "This is absurd. Anyone could have tampered with that footage." Ryan cut her off, his voice calm but firm. "It's time-stamped, and it matches the night Emma ended up violently ill." The children clutched at me, fear flickering in their eyes. I pulled them close. My heart breaking that they had to see this, but better the truth than the mask Margaret had worn. Daniel stood frozen, torn between the mother he thought he knew and the evidence on the screen. His lips parted, but no words came. Finally, he whispered, "How could you?" Margaret's mask cracked, anger spilling through. "Because she doesn't belong here," she hissed, pointing at me. "She's weak, she's beneath us, and she's stealing my son enough." Daniel's voice thundered through the room. I had never heard him so sharp, so final. He stepped protectively in front of me and the children. "You tried to poison my wife. You could have killed her. You've endangered my family." Margaret's hands trembled. "Daniel, I did it for you." "No," he said, voice breaking. "You did it for control. And you've lost it." Tears blurred my vision. For the first time in years, I felt Daniel truly choose me, not with words, but with the steel in his stance. He was no longer straddling loyalty between us. He was. "Here." Ryan quietly gathered the laptop. "I've already sent copies to the authorities," he said. "This isn't just a family matter anymore." Margaret gasped, her facade collapsing entirely. She looked smaller, fragile, almost pathetic. "Daniel, you wouldn't." He closed his eyes, a tear sliding down his cheek. "You're my mother, but Emma is my wife. And these are our children. You tried to destroy that. I can't forgive it." The police arrived minutes later, their knock loud against the silence. Margaret didn't resist as they led her out. She kept muttering, as if repeating a prayer no one else could hear. The door shut behind them, and with it, the air seemed lighter, free. That night, when the house was finally quiet, Daniel sat beside me on the couch. His hand found mine, warm and shaking all at once. The children were asleep upstairs, their breathing soft and safe. "I should have seen it," he whispered. "I should have protected you sooner." I leaned into him, tears sliding freely now. "You see it now. That's what matters." For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the weight begin to lift. Margaret's shadow no longer towered over us. We had faced her, and though the scars would remain, they were ours to heal. Together, as Daniel wrapped his arms around me, I realized the truth I had been desperate to hear. I wasn't alone anymore. My husband was with me. My children were safe. And Margaret, the woman who had tried to shatter us, was gone, for once. Tomorrow didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like something to hope for.